So, here we go, episode 2 of the Warhammer Battle Recap Commentary Vidcast. Our second battle of our new poor man's Warhammer.
I think we're all rich just for experiencing it.
That
is my statement.
I still think that the board, especially because of the terrain, still looks much better than it has any right to. But regardless, it does not detract from the battle at all. So this is High Elves versus Skaven. This is another matchup. Did you pitch this one? Did you?
I actually specifically pitched this one. Yes.
Okay.
Because I should point out here that, I've been dabbling in army building for virtually every faction. Dave is still recalcitrant to expand his horizons beyond the dwarves, but High Elves were something he actually had played with, was familiar with. And so those are who he said he would be willing to do a battle with them, and so I specifically pitched I'm doing those against, and I want to play the Skaven against them for some reasons we'll discuss.
I am very open to doing more armies, especially now. I used to not be. I used to very much just want to stick with what I know, which was dwarves, a little bit of High Elves, because I'd used them once, maybe twice before. But I'm to the point now where, now as I look at other army books, I'm like, I could try expanding. I think I've broadened my Warhammer horizons. But yeah, so High Elves versus Skaven, classic, another good versus evil faction. So why did you want to play the Skaven? And just speak a little bit into the Skaven.
Yeah, so the Skaven, for those of you not familiar with Warhammer lore, the Skaven are ratmen. They're underground ratmen. They're extremely cowardly. They come in large numbers. In the lore of Warhammer, they have like an under-empire, which basically under the main civilizations on the surface of the ground, they have an empire that's underneath all subterranean civilization based on backstabbing, and they're just a very sneaky, cunning, cowardly race that's very evil and wants to dominate all the races up above. And they have some gameplay mechanics that reflect that. And they also, just going on from that, I thought they'd be fun because as opposed to... so all the races in Warhammer were updated periodically, and while the previous battle we did was Tomb Kings and Dwarves, and those are two basically older, a little more basic army books. These are two fairly new army books, which means that they basically had a bunch of new rules and stuff, which are usually fun, and they're kind of fun to experiment with, a bunch of different ways you can play. So because of that, and since we were kind of getting ourselves refreshed on the basic rules, it looked like it'd be fun to kind of expand and do some armies with some more advanced rules and more exceptions to stuff and more exciting things you could do tactically. So.
Yeah, and both of these armies, because they're a little bit more advanced, there are more ways that you can play each one than, say, the Tomb Kings and the Dwarves. Again, the Dwarves, like we talked about before, somewhat one-dimensional. The Tomb Kings, there's a few different things that you can do, and you pursued kind of an alternative strategy, which worked very, very well for you. With the Skaven, there's several different... And once we get to deployment, you can kind of talk through some of your units. But same with the High Elves. There's 2 or 3 different ways that you can go, which makes it hard to predict, and therefore hard to figure out how am I going to try to counter whatever the other person brings. So let's just kind of start walking forward through. We'll just do the terrain layout, and then we can talk about the armies and the units that we bring once we get to deployment and we actually see them out.
Sure. And as before, we got into laying out terrain here. And I'll be straight up here, and this is not to blame my performance of the battle. My performance in this battle was not nearly as good as it was last week, although it was also not as bad as it seemed at the time. I get very annoyed when my plan does not go according to my plan. But I kind of built my army more more along the lines of, hey, these units look fun. I want to be to play with them more than a coherent strategy. Our last battle, I literally been planning for months and months. This battle was more like, hey, this looks fun to throw in an army.
Let's see what happens.
Let's see what happens. Which I still highly recommend as a way to doing that. Just don't be prepared to be the Warhammer Napoleon for that battle if you do that. As the book itself for this game states, the most important rule is to have fun.
Yeah. And there's so many different ways to experiment with Warhammer, and especially in these big battles, I know there's sort of a push-pull for me, I kind of want to do these alternate things, but this could blow up in my face very badly, and so then am I just subjecting myself to multiple hours of seeing my army get run over if this niche strategy does not play out. So
yeah, that's one of the downsides of doing like the 3,000 points. In one sense, these 3,000 points battle we're doing, which is on the larger end of 2-person battles, I would say.
Yeah,
is that there's a bunch of cool stuff you can bring in a single battle, but like,
they're
as
epic.
you mentioned,
They've got that big feel.
Yeah, but this was what you will see here today was from the time we basically started setting up terrain until the battle was over was almost 11 hours.
Yeah,
at least 10.
Yeah, just about 11 hours from start to finish.
Yeah, so if you're if there's a battle has a lot of giving back and forth, obviously that's great. But if you're like, for whatever reason, especially if turn 1 goes badly and you're getting run over, it can be less amusing for the remainder of your time.
Just subjecting yourself.
So we've talked about, because of that, maybe doing some smaller scale battles in the future. Oh, there, the tree just fell over.
Oh yeah, the trees, which look fantastic, but that glue does not hold up too well.
The trees were actually a bigger factor in that we had, because both of us had units that could move through them much easier than the last battle.
So this is the terrain deployment. I think as the video keeps going, we're rolling for spells right now, but just so. You brought some hills. I brought no hills at all. Was that and house rule? We knew which side we were going to start on. Often when you're setting up terrain, you'll do that and then roll to pick a side, so it's a little bit more randomized. But we decided to, just because of how our garage setup was set up, to go ahead and pick our side. So were you at all concerned when I put down no hills whatsoever?
Not really. I kind of thought, I assumed you would be setting some up eventually, because the High Elves being like having, among the many things they could do is they have some decent ranged, and I thought perhaps you'd have like more ranged, and I just thought I was kind of like doing an end on you, so I wasn't worried. No, I thought I'd ended development before you. I'd kind of, in my plan, I wanted to put like trees on one side of the map, and you did the same thing.
That is exactly what I wanted to do. Yeah.
So once I had some hills in the back for some of my ranged, and had some hills up there, I saw no reason to continue it, so I just kind of ended the deployment.
Yeah.
Because as it turned out, we ended up having kind of a similar strategy for like some similar flanks.
In my head, this is exactly how I wanted the terrain to be laid out, because I had some units that could move through trees. I wanted to sort of not bisect the field, because you can't put anything down right in the middle, but sort of cut it off in a third to create this tree line here on the right-hand side. The tree on the left was kind of a bonus, just to divvy up the battlefield a bit. I was pleased with the terrain, but basically exactly, I don't do a lot of pre-visioning, but I tried to do some of that for this battle, and it was basically what I was looking for. So I was happy with that.
Yeah, and then the same thing here. My strategy as it was, well, really when we get to deployment, we'll see. I did want some elevation for some of my ranged units, and some of my war machines did end up performing okay in the battle, I would say. And then I had some other units that didn't perform so well. So I was okay with this, although the trees ended up being a bigger problem for my ranged than did in the previous battle, I would say, by a considerable margin.
Yeah. So I'll go ahead and skip through to deployment. Do you just want to zoom to where everything's deployed and then just kind of talk through it?
That'd probably make the most sense, because otherwise I was kind of talking to. So we're all going to set up here.
So we're deploying one at a time.
Usually when you set up, there's a lot of setting up your less important units first, and then seeing
trying to get a feel for what the other person's bringing, where they're going to put it.
I should also point out here that there was a little thing that Skaven units being cheap ratmen, you're kind of designed around bringing big units with a lot of people.
Very expendable.
A lot of those big block units, and you can see a bunch of those big block units there on my side, which is the top side of the screen. The High Elves are very expensive. Their units are very, very skilled, but also very expensive. So usually they have less models and less units. So I fully expected for you to finish deploying before me, and that did not happen. You brought a lot of smaller scale units, and you actually outnumbered me on a number of unit scale.
Which was very surprising. Yeah. I did not see that. Okay, so here's the lay of the battlefield with everything deployed before the first turn begins. So kind of just walk me through your battle line, from left to right or whatever order you want. Just kind of give me just a brief synopsis of what you brought, maybe even some why. What your plan was.
Yeah, so here we can actually talk about, I'll talk briefly about the types of units the Skaven can bring, because we'll talk about the Skaven have a bunch of different, what they call clans, that they can kind of gear their army toward, and each clan has its specific units and specific, items which are good for those units. And you can mix and match them, but generally an army geared around the strategy tends to be a little bit stronger. So you have like Clan Moors, which is like monsters. There's like big, there's a unit called Hellpit Abomination I did not bring, which is kind of fun. There's Rat Ogres. It's designed around big mutated monsters. There's another one called Clan Scryer, which is revolved around like shooting and technology and warp lightning and all this stuff. What I ended up doing was kind of revolving on a thing called Clan Eshin. Let me mention. This like based on sneaky. They have assassins. They have a bunch of like guys that can pop up from all around the map and do poisony stuff. What I ended up going with this thing called Clan Pestilence, which is based around plague and like disease and illness, and they have all these units that are tinged to green, and then like the with like my catapultier, they lob basically globs of poison instead of rocks. And like I have these plague monks which have the sensor, which does this thing. I won't get too much into details, but the whole point is one of the reasons I wanted to bring this army against this is as far as my strategy went. The whole reason I wanted to bring this in, against the High Elves. The High Elves are very strong. They strike first in combat, which is the stupid rule.
It's a wonderful rule. Yeah.
Usually when you charge in Warhammer, you just strike first. So High Elves have a rule that no matter what is making a combat happen, they always strike first. Which
is important in combat, because if you strike first and kill some of the other opponents, that means they get less attack backs to you. So that's a huge, what almost seems like a game-breaking rule. However, it's remarkable how it does stay pretty balanced.
It does. I will say in the Skaven are better equipped to deal with this in most armies because, as we mentioned earlier, they are a newer army book. The High Elves have a rep in Warhammer Fantasy 7th Edition as being one of the more overpowered factions. They are one of the top factions because of that rule and some other things they can do.
Yeah.
That said, my army was like fairly good as well in terms of being able to combat that. And anyway, as I was mentioning, the one thing their weakness is their toughness. Almost all their units, like even their lords, are like toughness 3.
Yeah.
And basically, I have a lot of stuff in my army that ignores armor saves or attacks toughness. That was kind of my hope if I got into close combat, because there's many units that literally have a poisonous vapor around them. And basically that's the one thing that can kill you before you can even attack.
Yeah.
So my hope was to use that to kind of like knock down some of your guys so that then I could
it's a good,
attack your
good strategy. Yeah. I'd read through the Skaven book recently, and I didn't even pick up on that as a thing. So again, that's just, good forethought in that. And bringing something to counter the army specifically.
Yeah, so just a little bit of deployment here, and I think David thoroughly out-deployed me. He had, I've got on the hills there, I've got some ranged units as well as some catapults, and because the trees can see over other units, or excuse me, the hills can see over other units, but they can't see over the trees. And basically, all of my ranged units has trouble seeing his really valuable units here. So if you see like behind those 2 globs of trees on the right, he has those 2 blocks of 10 units, and those are actually super powerful units. In the center of his line, he's got that long line of archers and those 2 big blocks of spearmen. Those are actually, by Elven standards, very cheap units, and they're not really worth a lot of shots. So what he put in my ability to shoot at was not really worth the effort, and the stuff I really wanted to shoot at, I can't see, or at least can't see very well.
Yeah.
He's got some chariots in each flank. I can't see, which is bad because some of my range has been really good against taking out those chariots before they got in combat. And those chariots would cause me some grief because my abilities, those poison abilities I mentioned, are going to be best against his units with people in them. But when I'm attacking like a chariot, a chariot has a bunch of wounds. It's a single model, so I can't knock it out. It's going to get its attacks in no matter what my poison does.
And toughness 4, one of the few units with a slightly higher toughness than most of your rank and file.
Correct. So his, so I've got a couple big block units in the middle. I've got, essentially we both brought our strength to what is on the right side of the screen, I want to say. And then I basically put this unit of clan rats in the top left there. It basically is a holding action on my right flank. And that wasn't the emphasis of his strength, but his strength on that flank is still better than mine, basically. So I have a bunch of strength here. The skirmishing units you see, those are those blocks that aren't touching each other, those blocks of 8 units each. Kind of in the top right there. Those are skirmishers. And those are kind of actually big, heavy hitters.
Yeah.
But they're not in a position to see all these units on his right flank because there's not really any block units there. There's not really a lot that the stuff I wanted them to be able to attack, they're not really able to attack.
Oh, so you actually wanted those skirmishers to more like hit the spearmen and stuff?
Spearmen would have been better because they would have like torn through them a lot, I think. Although the spearmen, that's the thing, because even your units that are like weaker on that side because you have your martial prowess, so in your rear ranks, you're still going to be able to poke at my guys. The plague monks are all about hitting first because they don't.
If I didn't have that and then you wiped out the front, I would get nothing back. Yeah.
So really, it's your sword masters, your white lions, and your phoenix guard. Those smaller block units you have. Those are what they're designed to attack.
Okay.
And we didn't. That's not something that really happened that well, except in maybe at the very end of the battle when I have like that unit of 2 dudes who attacks your sword masters.
Which
kind of plays some havoc with your sword masters. But generally speaking, my strengths don't really play to his strengths, and he's got a lot in the middle that can clog me up.
Yeah.
And so I've got a couple really fun units I brought for fun. Those kind of big blocks on the middle of the top, and then the right on the top. One's a plague furnace, one's a screaming bell. But those are like special units that have special abilities that are in the middle of another unit, and I just thought that'd be a lot of fun to bring.
Yeah.
And they ended up being kind of fun to see. That's kind of what I was thinking. I will say I put a lot of strength on my left flank, so I was kind of hoping to sweep down on your right flank, which I think kind of sort of eventually I did.
Yeah, basically.
But it wouldn't be nearly as smooth of a process as I had hoped it would be.
Yeah.
So.
This is exactly the layout that I wanted, like that I pictured in my head. Again, not knowing what you were bringing, but knowing how I wanted to set up the battlefield. I got it exactly according to my plan. Could it have been slightly more optimal? Perhaps. The middle is great. Again, those 2 spearmen units, the center of the line, I was very pleased what they're lined up against with the archers. And then I knew I was bringing 3 great eagles and 2 lion chariots, and I kind of wanted to bookend the line with those to try to, crash in your flank, maybe get behind or to the side of you. The Phoenix Guard, which is the unit of 15 on the left-hand side of the screen, between the 2 square units below the 1 block of single trees. They're a very strong, very powerful unit. I almost wish I could have put them over to the right side because, looking at this, even with the sword masters and the white lions, those 2 blocks of 10, I felt like my right flank was going to be really underpowered, and that's also where my general, my super powerful mage is a character. And so I was concerned about the plague furnace. I wasn't concerned about your skirmishers because I honestly didn't know what they could do, and that was not a huge oversight because I learned very quickly, but those were very powerful skirmishers. I think of skirmishers as just kind of units to get in and kind of, muck things up a little bit, cause a little havoc, not be potential army killers.
Yeah, it's more like those plague monks are actually, they're army killers disguised as skirmishers.
Yeah.
And because they're skirmishers, I should mention, they can move through the trees without penalty, which is a thing they can do, which is why I wanted those trees, because those 2 units can move through the trees, without having to slow down. Having done this now, you see what the plague monks do. I would have liked to see them against like block units of, say, the Empire. Which again would just thought experiment. The Empire, you got your halberdiers. They're all toughness 3, like the elves. They take the poison test, and only the front rank gets to attack. And I'm doing like 14 attacks, or whatever.
Yeah,
like those units could like wipe out like whole blocks of
easily. Yeah.
The high elves, because they're strike first and because of their martial prowess, are tricky to like. They're tricky to beat from the front. Yeah. Well, they're tricky to beat from any side, but
also my two units there of 10 underneath the dual trees on the right. The ones in front are the Swordmasters, very powerful unit, multiple attacks, great weapons, very strong. And the ones behind them, the White Lions, not quite as strong in combat, still a elite infantry unit. The White Lions by nature and the Swordmasters by virtue of a banner. Both of those units can move freely through the trees. Ordinarily, only skirmishers, of which I have a unit there deployed because of the scout rule up in the top right block of trees. Ordinarily, they're the only ones who can move through trees easily. But both of these units of 10, my game plan was to kind of do a Macbeth, like the forest marching on you, in that I wanted to send these 2 units up and then be prepared to turn them whichever way they needed to help. That worked for the Swordmasters, not so much for the White Lions, but we'll see that. And then I had a couple bolt throwers, just some ranged. I brought no horsey units whatsoever outside of the chariots, obviously, but there's 3 very good units of cavalry.
Cavalry.
Not cavalry. That's a different thing. That the High Elves had, and I wanted to bring some horses, but I decided to stick with more traditional infantry, and that's what gave me the numerical advantage on you, which was surprising but very welcome.
How do you feel about the High? Because I remember reading the stats for the High Elf horse units, and they didn't really impress me between the Reavers and their. I think maybe the Dragon Princes are pretty good.
Yeah, I think the horse units could be very useful when used very effectively, and not being not having a lot of experience with that. I didn't trust myself to use them well. Had I been able to use them very effectively for flanking maneuvers, I think, because they've got the Reavers, which I think are fast cav, and a couple others. They're pretty strong units, but I didn't care about being that mobile. I wanted to be very balanced, and I think that's the thing I'm proudest of with this army. I could have brought, a character on a dragon, which would have been 600 points, or something that would have poured a lot of points into a single unit and really turned that into the focus of my army. I actively rejected that. I wanted to be balanced across the board, and I really felt like I did that very well. Like even my most powerful character was only 370 points. Like I don't think I had a single unit that was more than 400. Like I was very spread, and that's exactly what I wanted to do.
That's something I would want to mention, because that's something the High Elves do that with their lore, is that they can bring dragons.
Yeah, they've got 3 different kinds of dragons.
A lot of them if they want to. And that was another thing I was just surprised you hadn't brought, because I had both my Censer Bearers because of the number of their attacks, and my Jezzails, my long range armor piercing unit, were kind of designed to be able to counteract a couple of dragons you brought it, which you ended up not bringing. So.
Yeah, in some of my early High Elf builds, when I got the book last fall, I put together a couple of just basic template armies with dragons, and I love the concept of a dragon, but I was definitely turned off from that last week when I was like, hey, I've got this really powerful hammerer unit, and a big part of my subconscious game plan is to get a whole bunch of units attracted to it, and that's great. And then they never got touched. And so I was like, I don't want to build something around a single, and if it goes down fast, or if you bring something to counter it, as we see with the Storm Banner, that would have also messed up.
Also, the reason I brought the Storm Banner.
Yeah, that would have messed up a dragon real fast.
I have this item I start at the beginning of the match, which makes no flying movement happen, which did kind of interfere with your plan a little bit, as it would have done so much more so if you'd brought a dragon.
Yeah, which basically happens right now. So this is getting into the start of turn 1. So the Storm Banner, how much does that cost?
It's 50 points.
50 points, yeah. And
so I didn't even have a standard army standard bearer. That was just
okay.
One of my units is carrying it.
Yeah, so that shuts down flying units and shuts down shooting. Didn't bother me too much because I didn't have a ton of shooting. I really wanted my Great Eagles to get to you faster, to kind of slow you down, and let me position more and try to get more of your range. Didn't really end up hurting me too much, but the Great Eagles were not as effective as I hoped. So we'll get into turn 1. Any other kind of pre-battle thoughts?
I don't think so at this point. I think we just kind of dive in and see what developments. David roll, since he I actually had I had the +1 because I finished the point first, but you still won the.
Yeah, I think I rolled a 4 and you rolled a 2, so I got first turn, which was not as important as it was last week, but I still kind of really wanted that just to get out in front first. So I had the top of the first. And we will see the camera setup jury-rigged above the board here began to slip. We'll lose a little bit of sight as the battle goes on the left-hand side. You can see my chariot there on the very left edge. Nothing too much happens. More of the action is concentrated to the right here. But so my chariot moves up a bit. Let's just kind of get through movement. I go ahead and send the Phoenix Guard over to the left just because I do see those clan rats over there. Spearmen move up. I move my archers a bit. There go the sword masters into the trees. Oh, and you had put down this coin here on the right side.
I had sort of like in the last battle, stuff that could come from below. I had another unit that could come up from the ground, which I think there was basically a unit which can have a weapon team attached, which can dig stuff up through the ground and emerge. And that's something, even though you read the book, I think you missed out on.
I did not think that. And I missed it so much that at some point before turn 1, I think we took a quick break to go grab a drink, and I grabbed the Skaven book, and I'm like flipping through it, like what can come up from below, and like I couldn't find anything. And I was like, so I had no idea what was coming up there until turn 2.
Yeah, the reason is that it's not actually a unit; it's a weapon team, which is a very specific Skaven entry, which they can attach to another unit, which digs up through the ground.
Yeah, again, good usage.
And I'm actually going to say here that they were not nearly as effective as they could have been, because I kind of hoped that you would have at least 2 bolt throwers in close proximity, and if you'd had maybe a hill, maybe that would have happened, but you didn't. All of your range is kind of spread out. You just have 2 bolt throwers and those 1 arch units, and they're all
very spread out.
Ways apart. So as it was, I was kind of leaning on the right flank, so I'm like, I'll put him here. As it is, I don't think I got my point. They ended up, spoiler alert, they take out your bolt thrower, but then you end up like kind of killing them in short order after that, because they come up right on target. And honestly, if they'd scattered a bit more, they might have actually been more effective.
The fact that they came up on target, and I was kind of glad that I kept my white lions there, as opposed to my initial strategy of setting them up.
That would have been actually an interesting combat if my guys had come up behind your white lions and then attacked. They could have scattered in that direction, although it's unlikely.
Yeah,
that would have been an interesting combat, just because I would have an outnumber and a rank bonus as it was. Remember, we're getting ahead of ourselves. But long story short, that was a really cool idea, which I surprised him with. Which he still, I didn't get a point. I think he ended up with a narrow win from the points wise from that. From that perspective. But anyway, we'll continue with the battle.
So I do have my unit of scouts here, which, I mean, complete. We'll see here. They did virtually nothing for me in the trees up there, but hey, sometimes not everything works. And then just in case I didn't mention it, at the bottom of the screen, like the two southernmost units, sort of the thin white blocks on the right. That is my Archmage. He's my level 4 wizard character. I brought a lot of magic. All of my characters are mages. After never using magic as the dwarves, I really decided to lean into it heavily here. So I've got an archmage on a barded elven steed, and I've got a sort of a level 2 regular mage on the left-hand side, as well as 2 mages buried within the 2 spearman units in the center. So a lot of magic capabilities here.
Yeah, my army is not very magic intensive. I do have a couple of fairly powerful mages, and I have a general, which ended up being really good, which I didn't expect him to be. But I'm not nearly as character heavy as you, and if I known you would have gone so heavy on magic, I might have tried to be more heavy. As it was, you kind of out-magicked me. Some of my stuff would end up working, but not most of it, and your magic, especially your Shield of Salfrey, ended up being like some game-altering of benefit as we go along here.
Yeah, so that's movement, I think. Yeah, just some positioning stuff. Now we're into magic. I jotted down some notes on what happened during the first magic phase. You used a lot of your Dispel Scrolls early on.
That was kind of like, because my units are like big and intact right now. I only brought 2 Dispel Scrolls. I think I used them both in this first round because I wasn't one. The battles, if you've seen, tend to accelerate as you go along, and there's less and less units. So I kind of, when it comes to magic or single use items, I'm more of the hey, we're going to use these early because otherwise we might not be using them. As it was, you end up killing my Grey Seer and he had a couple Warpstone tokens he never even used.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So as it was, I probably could have leaned even more heavily into that. But I'm kind of like, hey, let's use items early, kill as much of your magic early as possible, because who knows if we'll get a second chance.
Yeah, yeah. And you dispelled a couple things. You scrolled a couple things. I did get some of my Shield of Sapphire, which is a 5-up ward save on. Didn't make as much of a difference, obviously, on this first turn. I did key, too. I got the arrow attraction spell off on the Jezzails on the upper left, which really helped knock them down. Since I had a disadvantage to shooting, but that gave me an advantage to shooting.
Yeah, that was the thing, because those Jezzails could have, like, maybe... They don't have a ton to shoot at here. They could have really threatened your mage.
Yeah,
in the left side of the screen there, which is kind of what I intended to do if they'd been like full up.
But they
ended up being like just not really
right there because of arrow attraction. I think that's my bolt thrower repeater shot, takes out 3 of them right off the bat, and then I think my archer is just plink. I don't think they do nothing, and then my bolt thrower plinks also does nothing. So not a ton of shooting success, some decent magic success. And then I think we're into the bottom of the first. So
yeah, so then I charge your scouts here, and I think I get a lot. So the battle starts off right, and because I think you just rolled a poor, you fled, but then just did a really poor.
Yeah, at the time, I really kicked myself thinking I should have stood. Now knowing what those guys did,
if you stood, you probably would have killed a couple, and then the same result would have happened.
Yeah. So I didn't kick myself about that decision too far, thankfully. But yeah, you charge my skirmishers, I flee, but you catch them, and so they're just instantly gone. That unit was only like 112 points too, though, so I wasn't.
Both of us are very unfamiliar with like scouts and skirmishers.
Yeah,
or scouts, I should say, like the units you can put up in your the enemy's area.
And then here you get into the first of many Jezzael maneuvers.
Yeah, so this is out of all the things they didn't do well, this is probably the worst. These Jezzaels were, I don't know what they're doing.
They were positioned.
They couldn't see anyone in the middle that is worth shooting at. I really wanted to get them to shoot like the Eagle or your Chariot on the right flank. By the time next turn rolls around, they have nothing to shoot anymore. The Jezzaels are move or fire, so if they move, they can't shoot.
I'm honestly really surprised you didn't keep them there and just shoot at the spearmen or something.
And if I'd seen what the battle direction it would take, I probably would have. But it's only the Jezzaels are a very high strength shot, but it's only 5 shots. So you kind of want to like put those shots at something with a few wounds that's hard to hit. That's why you want to shoot them in like dragons or chariots, something with like high toughness that's really, really tough to hit. So here was like I moved my Scream Bell head. I really wanted to get in action because that would have been fun. I really misgauged this. I was okay, it really didn't matter if you charged me. Your sword masters are in the trees there. I really mispositioned this. I moved up probably an inch or two too far because your sword masters are capable. As ended up by letting you overrun me. I'm pretty sure even if my weapon deep hadn't been there, you could have hit them in the flank.
I think so. Yeah.
We could have like measured that out. It would have been close.
Would have been very close.
But I think you could have anyway. So that is probably just, as we'll see. This is actually probably my biggest
position.
It's not the Jezzaels is more embarrassing. This is probably the most because that Screaming Bell unit is very, very expensive. That's my most. I want to say it's my most expensive unit in the army.
Oh, wow.
And I put it in a position here where his sword masters, I'm pointing, you can't see me point, but those 10 white blocks in the trees can hit me in the flank. And if they hit me in the flank, it's done. It's going to kill the whole unit.
Yeah. It's
only a matter of time. So I moved them. Yeah, I moved them too close to that because I was eager to get it into battle.
Right.
So sometimes it's like that. Sometimes it's like, hey, I want to get these guys in. I really wanted to engage your spearmen. I thought if I'd had a front on front engagement with your spearmen, I think there's a good chance I could have won that engagement. And I really thought I could kind of push through the center here. If there had been like, block on block here in the middle, you see my 2 block units, this is 2 block units. If there had been block on block, even with your archers, I stand a pretty good chance of winning.
Yeah.
Those engagements, at least collectively. The sword masters here can make that not happen. As it was, I almost lost the center, and my general ends up saving it. Now, basically,
did you anticipate? Because I kind of did, even though it didn't happen. We'll see because we're about to your magic phase. Even if you hadn't moved the Screaming Bell up as far as you did, because of the Screaming Bell's effects. Only 1 die on the first turn. Very good chance that it's going to have some bonus movement. So, like, you probably...
That's another thing, too. Well, that was another reason I wanted to do that. It's because the Screaming Bell, it can range turn and do that. There was something like a 50% chance I could have moved up 2d6. And I think before I moved it, I said, like, David, tell me not to take it so seriously. Because it's still kind of like a long shot. But it would have been, like, really cool if I'd moved up and then it charged you.
Yeah.
And then we resolved that combat. And if I'm able to win, then even though you still attack first... But before you attack, my Screaming Bell gets impact hits.
Oh,
my bell is going to be able to attack. There's just a lot of cool stuff that gets happen. And again, because you don't have a character in there other than your mage, I stand a decent chance of winning that combat.
That's true.
As it was, I roll one of... continuing a trend of poor dice rolls for the evening, I end up rolling a 1 on that. I had like a... 1 in 6 chance of nothing happening, and
nothing happened. Which is basically where we are now, because I think we're into your magic phase, and so the bell just sits there and does nothing, which is.
And that's kind of like because I put a lot of points in. I thought about this a lot. I'm like, I want to see what this bell can do, and ends up, And by the time it's actually is doing stuff on subsequent turns, it's in combat and is stuck with your sword master hacking away at it. So.
That is the cruelest part of Warhammer is that you bring something that has the potential to do a lot of cool stuff over the course of a battle. If it's gone by turn 3, and you may have seen it only do a fraction of what it could have done, which makes you want to play more to try more things and see what happens. But them's the rolls. So your magic phase. The only thing... Oh, yeah. So here you've got your...
Yeah, I have.
This was
I have
a
some
this was
a
Vermintide. Yeah, so the Plague Priest on your Plague Furnace casts that. Just a wall of rats that you send down my flank.
It did some damage here. Although if I'd
it
had it back again, I would have Well, it's weird because the template can touch any point on the furnace, but it can't actually touch the front line or hit
yeah.
So if I positioned it a little bit differently, I might have tried to hit your mage there, which would have been bad for you because it's per unit. He might have survived because he had a ton of saves, but as it was, it did some wounds, but didn't actually kill anyone, which is important. The Skaven have a lot of fun magic. Just stuff they do.
There it is. You see the roll there that you just rolled. That was for your Grey Seer.
Yeah, the Grey Seer here,
Warpstone
he
token
has tokens which
one.
give him extra magic, but they can damage him, and basically any time it went wrong, it did.
Yeah. So that first spell, what was the first spell that you did with him? It ended up, I think I dispelled it. Was it Scorch?
Maybe
Scorch.
It wasn't Scorch. Scorch is a
no.
Yeah, maybe it was Scorch. I can't remember. It didn't do very much. None of his magic did. This Grey Seer has a ton of magic, but the one spell I wanted him to bring, he ended up not bringing.
Yeah. And then here, I think, is where you use a Warpstone and you get your miscast.
Yeah, I somehow I do double ones and that. So he gets... This is still the first turn.
Yeah, this is still
and he only has 3 wounds. He's my most expensive character. So 2 of his 3 wounds are gone just from the items he brings.
Yeah,
and I miscast.
That was very bad luck. That was just...
Miscast, and I actually got lucky on the miscast here because most miscast cause wound. The Grey Seer was almost dead on turn 1 without even touching the enemy. I actually got a roll where it just lets you perform one of your spells for free.
Right, which I did
and essentially ends my magic phase because I had to use the rest of my dice to dispel it.
Yeah, well, no, and that one I got off. I destroyed one of your magic items there.
That's right. I think I tried to dispel it and then finished it.
Your first magic phase. My first magic phase was fine, nothing spectacular. Because
my
balanced out. Yours
was abhorrent.
It was just very bad. Yeah.
Not a good thing.
Then you get into your shooting phase.
Oh, and I should also mention, in addition to having to roll 1s for those wounds, he gets a 4 upward save for both those wounds and failed both of them.
And you failed both of them. Yeah. Your single dice rolls were just rolling 1 die is bad juju. Your shooting phase here, you put another wound on my chariot on the right.
Yeah, because the Plague Furnace has some cool stuff you shoots can do. That's really it, because other than that... So I got the 2... so I have these 2 Plague Catapults, which did some stuff. They make your archers flee for a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Actually, that helped position my archers better for the end of the game than anything else, because my archers were just going to sit there and probably get a hit or something, but because they panicked, and so I had to reform them back here, and that's basically where they sat, pivoting for the rest of the game, which ended up working okay.
Because your guys can pivot and still shoot, which is nice.
Yeah, so that kind of helped. The Jezzails, I don't think, did anything, and the other catapult went wide. So, and I think...
I wouldn't complain about it. The catapults here are very nice because they do these splash attacks, whereas most template stuff... You have to glancing blows if models aren't completely covered. But almost all of the Skaven stuff, if it touches anyone, it hits them, which is kind of nice lore-wise and also makes them more powerful. I would definitely bring those Plague Catapults again because they're fun against a toughness 3 enemy like yourself.
Sure, yeah.
But they didn't, unlike the catapults on the Tomb King's battle, were just game-breaking, and that was just kind of a fluke.
Yeah.
These ones were they weren't they were effective, but they weren't game-breaking.
Yeah. Now we're into the top of the second. My charges. I charged your skirmishers. Did you expect me to charge them or the Plague Furnace? Was that of any surprise to you? Or
it wasn't a surprise. It would have been nice if you charged the Plague Furnace.
Yeah.
But I expected you to charge one of those units. I fully expected either of those units to be able to take the charge with some damage.
Again, at this point, I still don't think I had any idea what your skirmishers could do, and I was like, oh, hopefully I can hit them, get an easy overrun, and then roll forward. And that didn't go so well.
So unless you wiped out my entire front rank there, which I think you didn't do good on the impact hits, because there's still a chance you could have done that. I think I got a little bit lucky.
I think there might have been only one. Here we have the charges in the center.
So this was the bad thing here when you charge my flank, and I've got my and I wanted to stand and shoot with my dudes. I probably should have had them flee away.
Yeah. Did you actually get any of them, or?
Oh yeah, I got like 3. So
Yeah,
they had to end. So, but that was basically my last hope for that center. There was because you did have to take a panic test, but you passed it because Elven leadership is high.
Right.
If you'd failed that would have again the center would have looked much different if you'd failed that test. That's one of those in retrospect, like, ooh, that was a big dice roll. But as they go into combat, my guys stand no chance, and because I'm in combat, you are allowed to overrun into that combat.
Yeah. Why did I not charge over here? I don't know.
Where you might not have been.
Oh,
in range.
I was in range, but I failed a fear.
Oh, that's right.
I failed a fear because I was going to charge to basically match against the Screaming Bell.
It's so weird because usually charging such a huge advantage for the elves. Spearmen, it's almost not.
Yeah,
because you attack first regardless, and if you're charged, you get to attack with 3 ranks. And if not,
3 ranks, not 2. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
we'll see more of that combat.
They did not. Yeah, that will evolve over the course of the battle. Over here on the right, I've got all these single models, and I'm just like,
yeah, and that's what because I have like my units are designed to take out blocks here, and you don't have blocks. You have
single. I've got bolt thrower, two eagles, which can only just walk 4 inches. Since they still can't fly because the storm banner is still in effect. I think all the way through the second turn.
Yeah.
So yeah, my eagles are just walking around. I was very nervous about that archmage, like just that he seemed so exposed, and yeah, as it is, eventually he will die. But,
and as it is, you do put your I was actually kind of surprised here because this is I would say you have like a weakness here in that you this is still your turn.
Yeah, this is still
because I think you put
movement.
like your great eagle here in front of your mage within charge distance of my plague monks, and there's was that a lion in front of him, or with a great eagle in front of your archmage?
Yeah.
So I'm within charge distance there, and
that's true. And if I'd kept them farther back, you wouldn't have been able to. That's
correct. So that I'm surprised because I think you held there, and I was again maybe that's because you weren't sure what the unit did. If that eagle had fled, it might have been different. But as it is, I what will spell the doom for your archmage there. Although it took a long time.
It did take a little bit longer than it probably should have statistically.
We're getting there. There was a specific dice roll that really angered me.
Yeah, I think I have that marked. Let's see here. So magic, I don't think anything terribly important. Although this might have been the. Yeah, this was when I cast the Safri here that we then almost forgot about. So I do get a 5 up ward save.
And this was, between that dice roll, the Safri dice roll coming up and that one.
Yeah. So this is magic and shooting. Nothing really of note happens, I think, here until we get into close combat. And we'll just kind of look for the visual cues. Where does combat go off? Okay, yeah, so here we are, Lion Chariot happening on the... So I get 2 of them, I think that's probably with impact hits.
Probably. Do you have more... Because you must have had more attacks after that.
Let's see if anything else... No, so I guess between impact hits, between the crew and the... Yeah, so I get... Okay, so now I get half the unit. No? Okay, no, like I did get a lot of them. Yeah,
Did I only get my unit leader attacking back? Or maybe because impact hits, then I'm able to kill it after you kill like 3/4 of the unit. I'm trying to remember if like
was 2 wounds.
Oh, it's because impact hits
don't count towards combat.
Well, they don't count towards. I'm trying to remember if they take out the front rank or not. I'm trying to remember.
Regardless,
it was either my unit leader or. You only the other guy. I think that just...
Regardless, you just kill it straight, because it's not like you...
Yeah, because he only had like 2 wounds left. And
yeah.
I'm able to cause that because my flails are like really...
Yeah,
really
you
powerful,
do. So. Between your Frenzied and your Hatred, those guys could attack so many times. And that's what I did. Like, skirmishers, I was like, they'll get 8, a handful of attacks. Well, when they get bonus attacks, they get to reroll attacks because of all their psychological bonuses. Yeah, that was they were much more potent in combat.
How expensive is the Lion Chariot?
140. The regular Chariot's 85. The Lion is 140. Causes fear, but again, it didn't matter.
Yeah, because my guys are frenzied, so they don't care. I'm trying to remember.
I was banking on fear being a little bit more for me, which I think we talked about. It wasn't game breaking like it was for the Tomb Kings, but I really thought Skaven leadership is low. If I can get my chariots and my Phoenix Guard to cause fear, maybe I'll get a couple things from that. But really didn't play that much of a factor. All right, then we get into I think close. Yeah, so then close combat in the very center. Your warp fire.
This is because here that's my most powerful unit, and you essentially remove it with that movement there, putting it.
Oh, and then this was key too because I overrun and I smash into, but because they're already in combat, we go ahead and resolve that this turn.
Yeah, and so my unit is unbreakable, which is the only reason it doesn't melt immediately.
Yeah.
But there's simply no way I can.
Those sword masters just get so many strong attacks. I take out a chunk. We do have a challenge here, I think, between the champion and
and that was
your
just
champion. Mitigate some stuff. I lose a few spearmen. I guess that was all for that combat because now we're into. Yeah, this is now into your
so here's
turn.
where my Night Runners come up. We talked about this sooner, and they come up in the back
bottom
there.
of the second. Yeah,
and actually that was not very good placement. They have to, per the rules, they have to both basically that token, the unit, and the weapon team have to both be touching it.
Oh, okay.
And I'm wondering if it might have been different. I don't know if I wanted to take out the range. I could have charged your Archmage. I could have charged. I didn't want to charge the White Lions because I didn't want to charge them in the face.
Oh, okay.
And I don't think that would have gone well if I had attacked them frontally. I really don't think because I only have an outnumber and a rank bonus there. And with your attacking first, and because those guys are actually their positioning is their advantage. They're very mundane. They're not poison or anything. They're weapon skill 3, strength 3, hand weapon. It's not very much.
Huh. The White Lions aren't that great in close combat either. That's the thing too. So
even though they only in terms of like not having number of attacks, but it's kind of their augmented stuff. They're stubborn, so they're not running away.
That's true. Yeah.
And they have great weapons. So when they hit, which because the weapon skill they usually will, they're going to wound.
Yeah.
So they don't have as many of attacks, but they make them count.
Yeah.
I will say I feared them less than say if you'd had a second unit of swordmasters there.
Yeah, which that would have been fun. But again, my whole thought with them was to send them into the woods. They never even touched the forest, so nor did they get shot at because they have bonuses to getting shot at.
With their cloak.
So that never came out. You hit my.
Well, I had no one who could really shoot at them that really suggested. Even the JSLs would have even canceled out their bonus anyway.
I thought you might bring more shooting than you did plague. You went more plague than shooting.
So I was looking at my army because after this, I built another Skaven army that's like very very shooty.
Oh, okay.
And I'm wondering how it would have done against this army now, having looked at it again. But.
Yeah. Let's see. We're still in the bottom of the second. Yeah. Okay, so there. Yeah, so you charge me. Mm-hmm. That was you had to think about that for a minute, but you charge me and you challenge. I accept with my champion,
and that's my general's very powerful. So because you're attacking first, my front rank will seldom get to attack.
Yeah,
so I'm going to do challenges just so I can inflict
get something.
Because if you kill a guy in a challenge, you can get extra points for killing him, extra amounts. So that was pretty much my only hope for winning that.
Points. Yeah.
My general is basically carrying my unit on his back there.
You charge my eagle with your skirmishers over here. You're just.
I keep delaying you on the left flank, although we can't see it. I'm just basically like making you take a long time to come in. In that sense, I knew there was no chance of winning that flank at that point. I was just kind of like, we'd have to do a point comparison there, but between your Phoenix Guard and your Lion Chariot, and I only had the unit of Clan Rats, so I might have fulfilled my purpose in just delaying you the whole battle there.
Yeah.
Although you do end up winning the flank because you're able to like kill everything.
Finally get there.
On the last turn.
If I hadn't had the chariot over there, you might have delayed it the whole time. If I just had the Phoenix Guard, because it would have taken a couple more turns to get up there, and then that might have slogged. But I think the chariot helped. Your Jezzails.
My Jezzails are continuing their dance. I'm like, maybe they'll shoot this way, because all my targets. So on the right flank, your eagle was probably not a factor anymore, and your Lion Chariot is now gone. Mm-hmm. So yeah,
this is magic. This is where you roll a double on the bell.
Yeah, that's right. But it actually wasn't. So I was.
It
trying
wasn't
to
a
remember,
great result. Yeah.
Did it affect because it should have done wounds to your crossbows, and I can't remember if it did or not.
The bolt throwers, you mean?
The bolt throwers should have both taken D3 wounds, and I couldn't remember. But
well, this one
That one, yeah, okay, that one died.
Yeah, that one died, and that one
Got the
took
one wound. Okay.
wound,
I was trying to remember if, like, because I thought that was that time the Giselles ended up... That one Giselle hit your crossbow.
Yeah.
And I can't remember what happened. That's near the end of the game, though.
Okay,
That's
yeah. Yeah, he might have finished with 2 wounds, I think. I can't remember.
Because I remember hitting it once, or maybe it just failed to wound or something. Anyway.
Yeah. But
Oh,
yeah,
because it hit but needed a 5 to wound. That's why.
Okay,
Yeah, so there's a lot of interesting combat here, and it's stuff to... The combat's a ton of dice rolls, and I don't think... We can't really go blow by blow here so much.
Yeah, I kind of
Suffice it to say that... well, the combat with your Great Eagle doesn't take place until next turn. No, that happens this turn.
Yeah.
This combat here with my generals...
You're still doing shooting
very
here.
interesting.
This is still... What was... Nothing really of note.
I'm rolling green dice.
Oh, yeah, okay,
before
so...
I curse the green dice.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. Here's the combat with your skirmishers on the right against my Great Eagle.
So
they whack it away pretty fast, and then they
because your Great Eagle doesn't attack first. I actually got to attack first.
Right. Yeah, that's only the elven actual units or the actual elves themselves. You overrun into my Archmage. I was very nervous about that, especially now that I could see what they did.
Yeah. So you have to take toughness tests. So every time this unit is near something, everyone has to take toughness tests.
Yeah.
Your guy passes only on like a 3 or less, where my guys need anything but a 6. But I kept rolling, one or two 6, which is accepted.
Yeah.
Part of Skaven is accepting that you're going to lose a bunch of your guys in the process of doing damage. That's part of their lore.
Yeah.
You kept passing that test over and over and over again.
Yeah, I think like 3 times I passed that test, which was honestly.
Yeah, and here's what kind of like dooms my Night Runners here. I wanted to pursue. They got a very 4-inch pursuit roll or whatever.
Oh yeah, you couldn't get far enough out of the range of mine.
I couldn't get far enough away. So when you charged me, I could have run, but if I'd run, I would have run off the board.
That's right.
I probably just should have run off the board, honestly, because I think then if your guys had a failed charge, would have been maybe I could have charged them.
Yeah, you might have been able to. Let's see. Then we get into combat in the middle,
which is just you whacking me away. That's just kind of like a sinkhole for you at this point.
Yeah,
but it's just a matter of time. This combat goes on. Eventually, I win this combat by 3, and we roll. And we'd even rolled through to the point where I tried to catch you, and I did. I basically want to come and destroyed you, and we remember like about the Shield of Sapphire.
Yep.
So you had like a very important role where basically. I think we did the math. You had 4
that right there.
So you had 4. You had 4
saves.
You had 4 saves to roll. You needed a 5 up to get a save because we extrapolated back from the challenge. Yeah. If you had done all 4, you would have only come out by 1. If you had saved 3 or 2, the combat would have been. If it was 3, it would have been a tie. If it would have been a 2, you would have lost. You would have been fine. And if it had been a 1 or none. Same result. Like, I still would have won.
I would have fled. You would have chased.
And again, this is a 5 up, so it was a very good chance of me winning the combat. And you end up rolling 3 5 ups.
Yeah, 3 successes.
Out of 4 dice. This frustrated me a great deal.
Yep.
Because my only hope was you're basically just going to get more and more guys in combat as it goes along, and I really, really, really needed a quick victory there.
Yeah, and if that had not saved, if you had plowed through with that unit. You would have had free reign down here.
The whole component of the game would have been different.
Yeah, because again, this is only bottom of the second. You would have taken out my bolt thrower. You would have gotten to my archers.
Because
that unit could have just steamrolled. I would have
different. And then my general's there, and he could break off by himself and do all sorts of fun things.
If you had done that, I very realistically probably would have considered turning my Phoenix Guard around and trying to swing them back down in the flank. But
that would have been actually an interesting battle.
Yeah, that could have gotten
with the nature because they still attack first, but you don't have the spears bonus there,
right? For a board save,
you had the 4 board save, but my general still has a bunch of attacks. It would have been a fun combat to simulate.
Here we have the combat in the center,
which is just
where I just wail on you.
Eventually,
I just have so many attacks there between the sword masters and
the screaming bell is really hard to hit. But if you destroy both the unit and the dude on it, it eventually just disappears because there's no one sitting on it anymore.
And here we turned off the lights and readjusted the camera a bit so we can see the left hand side of the flank just a bit better.
It's a little darker, but we can still see it, I think.
Yeah, you can actually read some of the names on the pieces as well, I think. Now I think, this is top of the third now. We get into this. I'm just advancing up.
Shouldn't I have... Oh, I didn't. I was going to say, shouldn't I have attacked your mage on that previous turn? But that's because they weren't in combat.
He was not already in combat, yeah, so that got deferred to
So Eagle charged me on the flank there, which I actually wasn't afraid of.
Yeah, I just wanted...
Eagles have like 3 wounds, so because I still have to do the toughness testing, and the Eagles they're reasonably tough, but they only have 2 attacks, so it's very unlikely that you would
Eagles,
kill both those guys.
Eagles are mostly just for interdiction and for trying to get back behind and mess things up, and the fact that they couldn't fly made a they're only 50 points apiece, so I mean they're pretty expendable, but
your chariot's finally coming to contact with my clan. I think I ended up winning one of those combats, and that would have been very interesting. Oh yeah, my Warfire thrower keeps trying to throw and keeps overshooting your Phoenix Guard. He overshoots him like twice.
Oh, that's right.
That would have been interesting if I'd been able to beat that Lion Chariot, but I only beat them by like 1.
Yeah.
If they had run, that would have been interesting. That would have made that flank very interesting. But once they go in the first combat, it's kind of a matter of time before you start working them down.
Yeah, there's the combat. I'd only kill one of your guys.
I think just because you rolled poorly in your attacks for that round, but
yeah. Now we have the combat on the left side. I take out 5. You take out 3. I beat you here, and you flee, I think. I do not catch you, yeah, because you turn and run, but I only pursue like 3 inches. Again, really would have been lovely to catch them and then been able to either swing them, across to this flank or just, clean up. They could have helped eventually over there, but, everything is a giant what if. So I beat you there, but you're still...
That's another fun part of the lore. The Skaven of a rule called Scurry Away, which is that when they're running, they get a bonus to their movement when they're running away from combat.
Yeah. This whole side kind of went... They almost went, which they do eventually. This was like a back and forth against the center.
Yeah, that's because there's like a second stage to that whole thing.
Yeah, this middle combat. Yeah, that's
I've got those 2 dudes who survived the attack with your chariot, kind of moving toward your sword masters because that unit's kind of suicidal to begin with. So I'm like, well, I'm going to just take out as many of your.
Why not? That's when the screaming bell goes away. Just over.
So that combat is effectively ended. Was that this? No, that wasn't it yet.
No, it's coming up here in just a couple of minutes because I jotted down the...
So I do a bunch of attacks.
Basically right here, you kill the Great Eagle, no problem. And then here it is, right here. So you've got your skirmishers here, which I forget how many attacks you have. 9 attacks because it's the 3 with the Frenzied and your champion. Or 10 attacks, you get 9 hits.
Yes.
You get 9 hits on my Archmage. I
get 8 wounds. No, I end up getting 8 wounds.
You get 9 wounds. I saved one of them with
armor save?
With my 6-up armor save. I think. No, is that?
I just remember that eventually so your guy only has 2 wounds, and eventually he has. I think we saw the roll there. He has like
that
8,
was it. That was it right there. He saves 8. He saves 8 on a single.
8 4-up. You have 8 4-up saves, right? So he has 8 dice to roll. If less than 7 of them are 1, 2, or 3, then he's dead.
Right.
And you rolled 7 4-ups.
Yeah.
And he survives, which is not. That's. I want to crunch the math on that, but it was not very probable, and it happened.
And so then, I charge you in the rear there on the right, and you don't stand too much of a chance.
Yeah, and they actually end up doing the Insane Courage, but it was Insane Courage without really a purpose, except to just keep them around another turn.
Oh, yeah.
Just really no one... Again, if I had been able to kill your Archmage, that might have mattered, because then I could have, possibly charge your White Lions in the rear or something, but...
this is the bottom of your turn. You're finally moving your Plague Furnace up further. It just took so long to...
Yeah, it was just slow.
They're pushing it.
I think they attempted to charge, but they weren't in range, and I just kind of tried, even though I kind of do.
Yeah, you do a little bit of shooting. That doesn't do too much. You had pretty good cover. Yeah, no, you took 3 or 4 guys off, but it wasn't as bad as it could have been. I go into magic, which doesn't do too much. You take down a couple of my sword masters, but I beat you in that combat there, I think. Yeah, and
I think so.
you flee.
Did I kill anyone?
Yeah, you killed a couple.
Because there were 7. Did I kill 3 of them?
You might have killed 3 of them, yeah.
Because if I got off... Because that was the thing, there was only 1 I could attack back.
Yeah. I don't catch you, though. All of my 2 catch rolls, my pursuit rolls were terrible. I take down your night runners there. This is now into the top of the fort. Yeah, somewhere. Where was it? It was actually, I'm backing up here slightly. Yeah, there were 2 different stands that my archmage had here. This is the one at the bottom of the 3rd that demoralized you so bad because you only needed 1 wound on him, and I think you had.
Did I not do it again? Oh, this is the time. And
this is the one you had
got 4 armor saves.
Yeah. So meanwhile, I didn't even go.
And you're having to take the gas test every turn and every turn. You're having to do these armor saves and these. So what is that, like the 3rd?
Yeah.
No, I think that's still just the second.
Yeah, just the second.
But again, it's this one dude. It's literally this
one guy
with frimpy elven wizard on a horse, and my crazed dudes with flails
with only 2 wounds. Like
it didn't make sense.
If he had 3 or 4 wounds, but you only needed 1 more there, and I saved everything. And I was just incredibly lucky. Then yes, here we are, 8.5 hours in, halfway through. You almost tried to concede here, and I talked you out of it just because there was so much battle left to happen. That all goes pretty quickly. We'll start moving real fast now. Top of the 4th, I do overrun your guys there in the upper left, taking that flank pretty well. You do, yeah. So top of the 4th, you finally kill my archmage here. He could only stick around for so long. We finally get your Plague Furnace into combat. You have so many attacks with these guys with just all the different effects there. You decimate my White Lions pretty effectively.
Yeah, that was that so? Okay, be honest. Was that a sympathy charge at that point, or do you honestly you thought that was the best thing to do?
I don't.
It was kind of. I mean, I go back.
I
think we'd both been looking forward to having a block on block.
Yeah, and I go back and forth. There are certainly times when, in a decision like that, I'm like, look, I don't care about a tactical strategic victory. Like, part of me just wants to play this for interest's sake. So does it really matter? So yeah, I think it wasn't a sympathy charge. It was more of a I really want to see what happens. So what's the point of running away and doing nothing? But yeah, you take away 8 guys in combat there, and do they stick around? Yeah, I guess. Yeah, they do stick around. Oh, because they're stubborn. That's right. Bottom of the 4th, you dance your Giselles around. You go to charge my archers with your skirmishers there, or you don't charge. You just move them up. This is still.
Yeah, I was trying to get to your archers here. So the one weakness I might get now, if I'd hit your archers, they would have torn them to pieces. But the weakness is that my guys have no armor. They just have a high toughness. So if you're actually able to shoot them, it's kind of funny because if you've been able to, if you have one of them that hit your line, there's a chance he would have killed them all.
That's very possible.
Or at least made them run away. But your archers kind of step through in the clutch here.
Yeah. This is bottom of the 4th. You do get my White Lions. You just kill them effectively. Your shooting didn't really do a whole lot. We're almost to the top of this combat here in the center. Yeah, this is where
I actually win this combat again.
I lose and I flee, but
I don't.
You do not catch me. Yeah, all of our pursuit rolls. Well, I mean, some of them were fine, but some of these key ones with the big units in the center,
Yeah, this is kind of not how I envision this.
This is very much attrition because if I'd caught you there or if you'd caught me here, that would have totally turned the tide.
It was ironic because then you charge, and I've kind of have an advantage here just because my bone breaker was on that flank.
Right.
It would have been a problem if he wasn't, and I think that was just I just hadn't moved. That was just kind of chance I had him on the side. Yeah, because of that, I'm able to like still, because of my basic contact, I can shoot challenge, and actually, even though you're on the flank, which gives you advantages, I have a decent shot at doing something in that combat, which is why I decided to hold.
Right. Yeah.
You've cleaned up my clan rats on the top left, and now you're pursuing my plague cloak catapult. That's kind of, is this the fourth now?
This is top of the fifth. Yeah, this is top
of the fifth. So basically, I'm just kind of using up your turn. I want your guys to just not leave that quadrant.
These guys did not rally. They actually, I think, fleed further.
That's right, yeah. But they rally in the sixth round, which is why they can do that.
Which is why they held. Yeah, and here, I was very pleased with how my archers got positioned after that failed panic test early on. It actually behooved them to stay farther back because they just turned and were able to... I have my swordmasters hiding out in the forest there. Some marginal movement. What else happens in the fifth? Not a whole lot. I shoot at your plague claw. I take down 2 of your guys with just my archer's fire. That turns out to be key, because then when I stand and shoot on the next charge, that's when I shoot them.
So my plague furnace, which is my most expensive remaining unit, has won, but it literally has
nothing.
There's nothing else it can do. So as you can see, I basically won that bottom right flank, which I wanted to do, but because your archers still contest it, and you contest these 2 right corners, one with your archers and your swordmasters at the top. These Jezzails at the end, I don't know if it's turn 6 or they actually charge happens.
I think so, yeah.
My Jezzails actually do, after having embarrassed themselves wandering around, actually their stand and shoot here is actually really effective, much more than it has any right to be.
No, this is this combat right here, I think.
So this was actually interesting, and I forgot if I did another challenge. I think I did. Yeah.
Regardless, you just won, and then I needed...
how much I won by... I think was that your... No, that was the pursuit roll. I forget, because you must have failed the leadership.
Yes, I lost the combat by a little bit, not a ton, but you outnumbered me in your fear causing.
Oh, that's
so
right.
I needed insane courage. I needed double ones. I had a 3-die roll, didn't even come close. And then I only ran 3 inches, so you caught me, no problem. And ignoble ends to those spearmen. But.
Something I'm not. No, it doesn't matter. Yeah.
No.
I was trying to remember that previous combat, the one where you got the 3 ward saves.
Yeah.
If I'd won by 1, if I outnumbered you. But since you got 3, it was a tie anyway, so it would have been regardless.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm wondering if you got 2 saves, if I would have won because of that fear rule. But
oh, yeah, interesting.
So these Jezzails are just getting in position because I know your swordmasters are going to charge them, and I just need to try to shoot your guys.
Right.
So I do. My plague priest is just kind of moving around, just kind of like, hey, what's up?
Here's where you split out your character. What was the rationality for that versus... Oh, did you want to try to send them?
I was trying to send them up there to... I didn't think they could attack. I thought they could contest that corner.
Yeah.
And I thought I had a chance to drive your archers off the board with my general, which I think I did.
I think...
I forget what...
No, I think they just locked
No, that was
combat.
the one like my last... No, I don't know if...
Somewhere in there.
I forget what the result of the combat. I do remember his mount... has those 5 super powerful attacks, and he missed my insult to injury at the very end of the battle was when he missed on all 5 of his attacks. The attacks that would have done 2 up to wound your guys.
Yeah, that could have crushed them. At some point, I stood and shot against your skirmishers and managed to get those archers. That was a good 110 point investment right there. I tell you what, I charge you in.
It was kind of annoying, these archers, because it's almost like they're not that powerful enough to delicate a resource you, but they just keep annoying all night, and I could not get to them.
Yeah. Charge you in the upper left.
I kill 3 of your 4 swordsmen with
so only 1 swordsman.
But you're 1 swordsman against my 5 guys, and that's about it. Absolutely favors your swordsman.
Yeah. I think this is the top of the 6th. Yeah, I reform my archers to try to shoot.
Because you stand and shoot. I forget if you shoot and stand and shoot.
I do. I don't even remember if I wounded him at all. I don't think I do.
I don't think so. He's
a tough boy.
Very,
yeah,
very,
I clean
very
up.
tough.
I clean up your plague catapult easily on the upper left. Here we have the combat here, which I knock out 2 of your Jezzails.
Yeah, and then you win the subsequent because did I pass the leadership? Must have passed the leadership test.
I think so. Yeah.
Because I outnumbered you, but you caused 2 wounds, and then we do the same thing in the next turn.
And then bottom of the 7th, this is my
I
standard.
stood an outside chance because I think the last one, if I'd like done an armor save, I might have been able to get an attack back. But
I think
alas, it was not to be.
Okay, yeah, I do get 1 wound on you with the stand and shoot. But
Yeah, so how many, when I come into base contact, you have 5, you still have all of 11 of your guys there.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what happens and how many I get.
I
think it ends up being...
You can't chart you.
I think, do I only get 1 wound? Because...
Maybe?
Yeah, so I moved up my Plague Furnace here. If I hadn't been in combat, that was the weird thing. If you had, like, fled, I have stuff I could do with my Plague Furnace in my last shooting.
Oh, really?
That could have, like, tried to attack you with, like, its thing. It's, like, its Plague Sensor and all that. But because it's in close combat, we can't shoot into close combat.
Yeah.
The rules say so, thus it must be done. Here we had a completely pointless argument that we were both tired about whether or not how many wounds it counted when it hit a war machine.
Yeah. But it was also like 1:30 in the morning, so it was late. Where do we get into the combat? Oh, yeah, the combat there. Again, I knock out one of your
you only get
Jezzails.
1 with your 3 attacks there. So I think I had an attack back?
Yeah,
Maybe
because...
not, but I can't remember. But I think I had an attack back and then just nothing happened. Because I still had an outside chance of killing him, which would have changed the... Well... It wouldn't have changed the outcome of that board quarter. It would have removed a lot of points from your... Because you're still getting half points for that unit.
Yeah. I think that is all the action. So did... You killed... Yeah, so I see
because
there.
my Bonebreaker didn't get any wounds. That's right, it was a tie. And my General only got 1, which means... I get 1 point for 1 wound. And
yeah, that was it. And I get 1 point for outnumbering.
For outnumbering, and that's combat's a wash.
Yeah, because there it is. There's your...
Yeah, the 2, 1, 1, 3, or whatever.
2 3s, 2 1s, and just...
And I think that does finish.
Yeah, because nothing else was in combat at that point.
So what did we end up? You ended up with like just the 1 board quarter with your Phoenix guard up there.
Yeah, just upper left board corner. But I killed
your general, so that was a wash. So
it basically just came down.
Yeah, without getting into the points very much, the points we just tallied up basically how many points of the enemy you kill. So I had kind of assumed that I lost by a lot, and ended up not being the case. It ended up being the book. It was a draw by the point. David had an advantage in points by I think a little under 200 points.
Yeah,
because stuff you'd killed, but with the scale of battle we did, you have to have won by 400 points or more.
450.
450 to go from a draw to a minor victory.
What was the last thing you texted me about? I should have gotten half points on.
It was the Plague Priest because
the priest because he.
Yeah. So then it would have been like 21 points. It would have gone to like 110 points, or something like that.
Still a very close draw. I felt like it was evenly matched the whole way.
I did not, because I have a temper and I do not like when things do not go my way. And one of the things about Warhammer is that it's a very great thing if you're working on. For self-betterment, improving on what your reaction is when your plans do not come to fruition.
Yeah, and just throwing up your hands when the dice rolls go poorly, and just having to be okay with the random chance element, which that's hard, but
but it was. I still had fun. I hope you did. It was very much outside the box. I think it kind of whetted our appetite for doing like some armies we are not that familiar with. So we kind of talked about like doing armies we haven't done before. We kind of have really good foundational knowledge. So
this was definitely the most game plan I've ever had going into a battle. And while it didn't all go according to what I wanted, it went close enough where I felt really good about, I had these ideas and I had these plans, and they sort of happened, which for me is different than the usual dwarven stand and shoot and do virtually nothing else. So I was pleased with that. Warhammer is, what else is going to make me stand barefoot on a concrete floor for 11 hours forgetting about time? I mean, it's it really sucks you in.
The fact that you even asked that question shows what a unique individual you are. I'd just like to say that for the record. But yeah, so it's going to be a few months before we can do another battle, but we've kind of talked about any time that we're in the same area, we're going to try to throw one of these together.
Absolutely.
And maybe even make more videos if people like watching them. So.
And really now that we have the freedom to, create pieces for any army, try and start experimenting with some different armies, ones that we haven't done before, and really get into more and more of that new territory, because, it keeps it interesting on the battlefield, but it also keeps it interesting in these recaps of, you know, what was my plan, what went right, what went wrong, and it's just a constant evolution of knowledge.
Exactly. So we'll talk about what we want to do next, and when we do battle next, we'll see how it goes. We still have a challenge on since that was the draw.
So technically, even though your Tomb King victory was an absolute massacre, and this was a draw that by points went to me, so I guess that's 1-1. I told Micah that last night, and he was
I'm not sure that's the case, but in any case, consider yourself challenged, and
we shall continue moving forward in this new era of two-dimensional Warhammer. A glorious thing.
A very glorious thing. Until next time.